Hey everybody, welcome to another Untold Stories podcast. Today, I'm sitting with Captain Keagy, one of my greatest mentors and friends in life, and one of the reasons I ended up in the Keys. And we're going to talk about the good old days. We're going to talk about some times we shared together, his journey, my journey, and I'm really looking forward to this. Ozzie, welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have you
Appreciate it.
here where we can talk about the time and the days, and we'll just go back a little bit. You were the one, when I was growing up in Fort Lauderdale, you showed me the bone fishing in Biscayne Bay. You showed me the redfish in Flamingo. You showed me the permit in the Marquesas in Key West, because I had never been exposed to that around the canals and the piers and all of that stuff. So it was something that you really kind of opened my eyes to a great, cool thing.
Yeah.
And, I'm grateful for that. And, I just want to let everybody know this. I met Ozzie when I was a kid on my bicycle.
Yeah.
And you work for the Sun Sentinel in Fort Lauderdale.
Right.
And you happened to be driving by and you saw my friend and I catching these Jack Crevalles off of Las Olas, and you stopped and you talked to us, and you wrote an article in the paper about us kids catching these jacks. And I mean, we'd go to school and we were like big shots, and heroes, and here we are in the paper, and we just thought it was the coolest thing. And I know when you were doing that, you really interviewed a lot of kids, and you were the outdoor writer for the Sun Sentinel, so you probably did a lot of that stuff.
You guys helped me immensely, because if you're cranking out 6 or 7 columns a week for a newspaper, you have the deadlines, and you have a following. And I hate to say it, but I was a pretty decent writer.
Right.
And I read a lot of Hemingway. I threw a lot of him into my columns. And but it's hard to come up with the material.
Right.
And so one of my best sources of good writing material was the kids, who are better fishermen than anybody. They haunt the bridges at night, snook. They get up at 5 a.m, they throw the nets, and they catch giant crevalles. And so every chance I had, I'd meet up with the kids in Fort Lauderdale. And I had a camera, so I'd take pictures of these tarpon and everything. And these kids were really, really good fishermen, and they were likable. And so they were a good source of material for me.
I can remember when that happened, I had gotten your phone number. And, back then, I had to call you from a landline, my home phone, leave you a message on your voice, machine at your house. And we kept in touch. And I was I was on my bicycle, so I had to be in that probably 14, 15, maybe something like that. My friend Pat Kelly was the one fishing with me. He lived down the street from where I grew up. And I would call you when I had something cool that I had caught off the pier, or fishing with my friend Greg Thomas, who I grew up with, catching a big snook somewhere, and you put it in the paper. Yeah. And it's just, looking back now, I'm just kind of amazed and grateful that started a friendship and a communication with you and me that ultimately led me to the Keys.
Yeah. When I was a real little kid, in the 50s and in the late 50s, growing up in Fort Lauderdale, I used to get on my bicycle. My father built a house in Harbor Beach, and I used to ride my bike down to Beach Bait and Tackle, which is right on the beach in Fort Lauderdale. But to get there, I had to ride my bike past a charter boat fleet.
A dock?
A dock.
Yep.
And there were probably 20 or 25 charter boats there then. And from the start, I always wanted to be a charter boat captain, which my father didn't. He wasn't crazy about the idea, but that's what I always wanted to do. So when I'd had enough of working for editors in the Fort Lauderdale News, editing my stories, and if you're a writer, it's difficult to read the paper the next day and see that your column didn't come out the way you wrote it. Mm. And so after 3 or 4 years of that, I decided to get my captain's license, and I bought an old, which I did, and I bought an old Norseman, a 38-foot Norseman. It was a charter boat in Marathon.
Oh wow! Was that the Miss Windy?
No, the Windy 2.
Windy 2.
It was a 1955 Norseman,
right.
built on the Miami River. And in those days, there was no fiberglass boats; they were all wood.
Right.
So Norsemans were made out of mahogany, and they're just the classic charter boat. You know, whether you're talking about Pier 5 in Miami or ADOC in Fort Lauderdale, the charter boats, they're almost all Norsemans. So I went down and I spent $18,500 for a 38-foot Norseman, the Windy 2.
Wow.
And I put it among the charter boat fleet at BHMR in Fort Lauderdale, not knowing really what to expect. But one thing I did find out was good mates were hard to find.
Right.
And another thing I found out was if you don't have the bait, the live bait, when you put up the kite for sailfish,
right.
You're just lost. You're lost. We had a bait man, I think his name was John, and he used to show up at the dock with these tired old black mullets swimming around like that for like $1 a piece. But, they just didn't pull the sailfish up. So,
well, speaking of that time,
yeah,
when I was, I guess I had worked for Tommy Green, Custom Rod and Reel, and I was working for George Copeland at T&R Tackle, and and playing baseball too and doing my thing. We got together because you needed a mate, and I can remember the conversation we had. I said, Ozzie, here's how it's going to work.
Yeah.
And you just looked at me like, you punk ass kid telling me here's how it's going to work. And I said, I'm going to make you a deal.
Yeah.
I said, I am not going to sit here and book trips, because that's what you had to do at BHMR.
Yeah.
You would sit at the dock, the people would drive by, and you'd reel them in.
You reel them in.
Right.
Reel them in.
So you would get them to stop, and then you would give your spiel to get booked for the next day.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not doing it, but here's what I will do.
Yeah.
I will have mullet for us every morning.
Silver mullet.
The choicest silver mullet you can have. And we'll be out there with the kite up an hour and a half before these guys leave the dock.
Yeah.
And you said, deal. And from the get-go, I would get up in the morning in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
And this is...
Wilton Manors.
Yep. I'm 18, 19 years old. I would get up at 4 o'clock because I wanted to go snook fishing if the tide was right. And I would always have a bonus of a big snook if they happened to be there when I'm catching bait. But I had my bait spots, and I would show up at the boat with the Toyota that I had, that blue Toyota.
It was blue.
Yep.
Rusty ass.
With a garbage can with the things jumping out of it.
Yeah, salt water flying in the air.
All I could do was get them in the bucket to get them in your bait well.
Yeah.
And everybody used to just look at us and just snare.
The mates and the captains,
they hated
couldn't
us.
Believe it.
And I'd go park. By the time I would park, you'd have the people on the boat. You'd be ready to go. We would untie. And I can remember we did it for a couple, 2 or 3 years, I'm sure, but we would outfish them just because we had so much more time on the water before they got there. And a lot of days they would wait for the mullet, didn't show up.
Yeah. It's all about the bait.
Yeah.
And when you put a live bait up in the kite and you got a silver mullet that was a free mullet, 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
Going and used to know how to Catalina rig these mullet too.
Right.
With the threads and everything.
Right. Well, we used Dacron for we didn't have rubber bands.
It was called a Catalina rig or a...
Well, it was a piece of Dacron that we looped, sewed them on there.
So they could swim like this.
Yeah.
I remember, Randy, that you and I put 40 or 50 sailfish at least in the boat before anybody else even started to fish for them. No, that's true. We crushed them.
Yeah.
It was really good.
It's funny because you talk about nowadays we don't kill them and we let everything go. Yeah. But back then, back in those late 70s, early 80s, it was pretty common for people to mount their fish.
Yeah.
So if we had a guy that wanted to mount a fish, we would always try to single him out and say, okay, this guy wants to mount one. Let's catch him first.
Yeah.
And one story that we still laugh about today was the guy that caught one and we let it go. And then his buddy says, oh, well, I wanted to mount one. And I was like, Ozzie, we need to catch another one. And we did. And probably these guys, well, they're mostly tourists. So you're talking about guys staying in the hotel and doing it one time.
Yeah.
And we put the fish in the boat and we tried to make pretty clear, you're going to mount this thing. It costs money. Here's approximately, we do all the groundwork. So we felt pretty good when we got back. Old Betty Beerbimple would write it up and everything. And, it would be okay.
She was the dock mistress. We need to clarify that.
Right. The dock master at A dock.
Yeah. Dock mistress.
But she was the one that, didn't she write the mounts and do all that stuff?
Well, in those days, to make a living in charter boat fishing, the cost of the charter didn't really make enough profit for us to stay in the business. It was the mount commissions, the tips, and the fish we sold on the dock.
Right.
That's what did it for us. And so we were at J.T. Reese agents, and the mate, the captain, and the boat owner, and the owner of the dock, we all got a cut. But the thing about it was J.T. Reese, which was a taxidermist in Fort Lauderdale, wonderful, excellent mounts. It took a year to get a fish back from J.T. Reese, but they were skin mounts.
Right.
So you had to provide a fish for them, and they would process the sailfish, to name one. They would skin the fish and treat the skin. They were skin mounts.
Right.
So, and it took a year to get the fish back from the taxidermist. But they used the fins, they used the skin, they used everything, I think, but the eyeball. And so what you got back was a fish that you actually caught.
Right.
Today, they're molds. They're release mounts.
Right.
You don't have to kill the fish. But back in the day, that's all there was.
Right.
Was skin mounts. And Al Pfluger was doing the same thing down in Hallandale. So you had to put the fish in the boat to get a mounted sailfish.
And I'm sure all those fish, all those years, they would make molds and they kept them, and they eventually built an inventory of assorted measurements and fish and molds that they.
And I think back to all the fish that we killed. I regret that. But that's just how it was.
We didn't know much better back then.
And also, if you threw a sail, 1, 2, 3 sailfish or whatever you caught that day, you could book trips.
Oh yeah.
You could book charters, which you're not very familiar with. And I got to say one thing right now, that Randy is proud of the fact that all the charters that we fished, that Randy did not book one charter.
No, I didn't.
He never booked one
But
trip.
that was the deal.
Yeah.
And you were okay having good bait and doing what we were doing because, I kind of looked at it too, because I had stuff going on. I didn't have time to sit there because I was playing baseball or doing something. So it was kind of the perfect marriage with us. And I mean, we just had such great fishing, and we made a great team doing it.
We did.
And one in particular, the guy that stiffed us on the sailfish mount.
Happened 2 times, Randy.
We'll just talk about one.
Yeah.
He raced to his car to get him and his buddy.
Because we killed a sailfish because he promised he was going to mount it.
He was going to mount it, and there was 3 of them. And there was a guy in the front seat, guy driving, guy in the back seat. They like quickly paid up, because a lot of times you would settle up on the way in and didn't have to deal with it when we got to the dock. Well, the guy got off the boat, and like a gazelle, they jetted over to their car.
A rental car.
The only problem is this car's got to go by us to get out, because there's one way in, one way out. So I looked at you and I said, Ozzie, are we good? He goes, the guy didn't come through with the mount. I said, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
And the guy pulled up in front of the boat, and I stopped him. And I said, you forgot something. And I put the sailfish in the guy's lap in the rent-a-car and closed the door, and they drove off. Yeah.
You did that another time too, with another sailfish deal that fell through, and you had the guy open the trunk, and you stuffed the sailfish into the trunk.
Can you imagine what the rent-a-car place had to say when they got that back?
Yeah.
But you know what? We tried to make it as clear as possible.
Yeah.
It's okay if you don't want to mount it. It's not a problem. We're good with it. But if you do, we don't want to kill it for no reason.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you say you're going to do something, we expect you to do it.
So,
but those were some great days.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about, you know, you were in the Keys and going to Key West and Flamingo, Biscayne Bay. Like I was saying, you kind of exposed me to that stuff. I caught my first bonefish with you at Soldier Key.
Yeah.
And I can remember that afternoon, just hundreds and hundreds of tailing bonefish at Soldiers. And you would always say when we were cleaning the boat up or doing something to be like, Randy, we need to be in the bay. Tomorrow we're going to Biscayne Bay. The tide's right. And we loved that late afternoon for Biscayne Bay. We'd do a morning charter.
Yeah.
And then we'd have lunch somewhere and get down there for the afternoon.
We'd launch at Crandon Park.
Yep.
On Key Biscayne and go down.
And it was, you obviously did it prior to showing me. And I mean, I just remember so many fish back then, you know, Midnight Pass, Caesars Creek, Soldier Key, Ragged Keys, the featherbeds, the places that we would go and
Lewis Cut.
All of that stuff. You spent a lot of time with me when I was growing up that I'm grateful for, because ultimately when I got to the Keys and figured out, you know, well, what am I going to do? Having that opportunity with you to go. And, you know, I always laugh when you said I got to pay $250 a month for rent. You know, renting the upstairs of the house. I was like, Ozzie, you're killing me.
I thought I gave it to you for free.
Well, you probably did, but sooner or later you started
I don't
charging
think
me.
you paid up, Randy.
And I was like, can I build you a couple of rods or something? But it got me there.
Yeah.
You know, the baseball thing fell through. I'm in the Keys.
Yeah.
And I see what's going on, and I'm thinking, you know, I could do this guiding thing, and I did, and I'm just really thankful for that experience, because otherwise I would have not really known anything about it. I'd probably stayed offshore fishing.
I don't remember a lot, Randy. You know, I'm just an old man. I forget everything. But I do remember one thing. When I had the Windy 2 at BMR, and I wanted you to get your captain's license in the worst way. And I remember letting you back the boat into the slip. You know, you twist the boat around, you know, and you come back in.
Yeah.
And I remember trial and error. And after a few times, you put that boat in the slip. And I remember trying to help you in every way I could.
Yeah. No, I remember that.
Not only Biscayne Bay, and Biscayne Bay was a wonderful place. I knew Biscayne Bay like the palm of my hand.
Yeah.
And it's not like that anymore. Of course, everybody knows that.
Yeah. I mean, even the Stiltsville, I mean, I can remember, I think we caught a bonefish one time, like within sight of the boat ramp.
Stiltsville. Yeah, there was one flat in Stiltsville. We used to call it the Tower Flat because there were some kind of radio towers on the ocean side of the flat. The best day I ever had on a fly rod for bonefish in Biscayne Bay or any place else was I caught 5 bonefish on a fly rod between, let's say, 3 o'clock and when it got completely dark. I caught 5 bonefish on a fly.
Wow.
In that length of time, because there were so many fish and they were so eager, you know, to take a fly.
Yeah.
That's cool stuff.
Yeah. No, I remember how, I mean, I'm not going to say it was easy, but I think that just the numbers of fish that were there, if you got it in front of them, they bit it.
Yeah.
It didn't, I don't think it mattered what you threw. They just ate it. And, you know, it was just, for so many years I went back and I did that. And I learned little areas. And I remember the, you know, us going to the Marquesas in Key West, going permit fishing, like dedicated 24 crabs. And we'd go through all 24 crabs when we would go permit fishing.
Yeah, we fished hard.
It was just
we fished hard, and it was important.
Such a great experience down there with, and I think back then too, you know, there weren't a lot of guides. I mean, there was a handful of guides that were doing it, but a lot of them didn't understand how to do it. And you somehow understood how to play the game.
Well, somewhat.
Well, enough to where it made a difference.
So I leave Fort Lauderdale and BMR for the Keys. I decided I wanted to live in the Keys. So I knew 3 young men that might be interested in following me down.
Yeah.
One was you. One was my old friend Les Brown, who was born in Marathon. And one was David Applegate, who also made it for me.
Yeah.
So I moved to the Keys. By that time I had a 42-foot Carolina. I took that down. I was fortunate enough to get a slip at Bud Mary's through some connections. And so I went down with my family and 3 kids.
Yeah.
And you guys came down with me.
Yeah.
So that's how you ended up in Islamorada.
Yeah. No, my life in the Keys was because of you taking the time with me and working for you and doing that stuff. I mean, I don't think I would have ended up there. You know, it's funny how life works, but obviously that was my destiny.
That was a defining time.
It was.
Yeah.
And you just figured it out. You know, had my little rod shop. I figured, you know, there's got to be people with broken rods. Yeah. So it just worked out. And it's still working out to this day. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm retired, you know, I'm an old man, but I'm proud of you guys, Randy. I'm really proud of you guys, you know.
Well, we stuck it out.
Yeah.
I don't know about Applegate. I haven't heard from him in years. Last time I heard he was in St. Augustine.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah.
Hope he's okay.
Yeah.
I know Les has died, you know, an old friend of mine.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when we first moved down there renting the house, and you said, hey, Applegate and his wife are going to rent the downstairs.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. Holy cow. That was an experience with those 2 downstairs.
Yeah. Yeah. He had a kind of a mean wife, shall we just put it that way. She was hard on him.
Yeah.
Poor old David.
Oh man. God, those were just the days.
I know it.
And life was simple. It was pretty simple.
I bought that house that you guys rented in Tavernier. I think I paid $82,000 for that house.
Yeah.
The last time I checked, that property was worth 1.1.
Well, they added on to it. They put like a whole nother house on it.
Yeah. I owned a lot behind that too.
Yeah. Yeah. We were, I was talking to someone the other day about, you know, the real estate and stuff. And when I was there, your neighbor was the sewing machine repair guy. And he was on the south side. I forget his name. And he had a house on the ocean just south of Whale Harbor.
Yeah.
And he begged me to buy this thing at whatever deal we could make for $165,000 on the ocean. Yeah. And I can remember to this day going, you'll never get that kind of money for that house.
Yeah.
And, you know, early 80s, things were so different. I hate to think of what it is now.
A trailer on a canal in Marathon, $1 million.
Yeah.
A rusty ass trailer.
Well, you had one in Hammer Point, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
That's another story. Me and my brother went halvesies on a trailer, Bayside.
Yeah.
Hammer Point. We paid $72,000 for it. Bayside.
Yeah.
A 40-foot lot, and we sold it for $86,000. Thought we did good. The last time I heard, that 40-foot trailer lot in Hammer Point was 1.4.
Yeah.
For the lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Yeah. Who would have thought?
A sleepy Keys town would turn into what it's turned in. But you know, it's been discovered, and people know about it. So, do you remember Chub Key?
Chub. I remember a lot about Chub Key.
Okay.
And the Berry Island chain in the Bahamas.
Yeah, we got to talk about Chub Key, because nowadays guys go to the Bahamas and they've got thousands of dollars of bait. They have thousands of dollars of mullet dredges, teasers, all of this stuff. That's right. Yeah. To tease up the marlin and to get these fish to come.
The Christmas trees and
get up behind the boat.
Sonar.
So. Yeah. And sonars, they're putting these sonars in boats for $100,000 so they can see the fish and drive over to them. So all of this technology, all this stuff going on, and I can remember you telling me, I don't think I did a chub trip with you, because you'd go with your brother and some friends, and
I had some charters too.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably before me. But David Applegate was your mate over there.
A lot of the times, yeah.
And when you got done with your Budweiser,
Yeah.
you would put it on I don't know if you had like a spreader bar or how you rigged it up, but you put the Budweiser beer cans out, and that was your teaser for Blue Marlin.
The best teaser in the world. It was a beer can teaser.
Yeah.
So you drill a hole in the front and the back of a Budweiser can, and maybe a 6 or 8 ounce lead, and then behind the beer can you get just a rubber skirt, like a 50-cent rubber skirt, which goes like that, and just put the beer can over the side and put it in the wake of the boat.
Just one beer can.
Well, we did 2, one on each cleat.
Yeah, but I mean one and then your skirt. So it probably resembled a lure.
It was a beer can.
Yeah. No, I know. And it was free.
Yeah.
Considering you drank the beer out of it.
Yeah. And the bubbles that came out of the front of a beer can were just unreal. And
that's pretty funny.
And I've seen Blue Marlin come up on beer can teasers, like a 25-cent beer can, all lit up,
right.
The pecks are out, their pecks are blue and turquoise, and they're swimming back and forth like this. They get on a beer can teaser. And
I remember that.
I would save some money if I was Blue Marlin fishing on teasers, because that's all you have to do.
Yeah. I just wonder if it'd work today. They'd probably
it would. Yeah.
Today.
Yeah.
You have to put a hook in it.
And, but you got to go to Chub Cay and do your laps around.
Yeah.
You got to do your laps around the tongue of the ocean there.
Yeah.
And you pull 2 or 3 beer can teasers and some Spanish mackerel baits, swimming behind the teasers, and just hang on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because up they come.
Those were the days.
Yeah.
Well, I know they actually had some pretty good fishing over there this year. There in the Abacos and Bahamas were pretty good for a little bit.
Yeah, good.
But I haven't been over there since that big hurricane a couple of years ago.
Wiped out a whole entire key.
Yeah. Abaco really got it.
Terrible.
But the growing up in the Keys and moving down there with you looked a lot like Jimmy Buffett. And people would sometimes mistake you and think, hey, that's Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah.
Would you ever play that out?
Lots of times.
Yeah.
Well, I'd go to Key West, and spend time on Duval Street, and all the bars on Duval Street.
Right.
And I was signing autographs. I'd get in my car, and drive someplace else, and the girls would pull me over, sign this, sign that.
Thinking you were him.
Yeah. There's I think Jimmy Buffett's first or second album. There's pictures if you flip open the pages of Jimmy Buffett and me. We're like twins.
Wow.
Now since then, today, we're both bald, but we don't look so much alike anymore.
Right.
But back in the day,
no, it was.
We did. It was
very close.
Yeah, we're dead ringers.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, that had to be pretty entertaining growing up with that.
Yeah. There's one CD album. I think it's Jimmy Buffett's second one. It's called Living and Dying in 3/4 Time.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Buffett is sitting on the bow of a half-sunk shrimp boat. And I remember on the prow of the shrimp boat, the name of the boat is the Good Luck. Now I don't know, if they did that later on, but the sunken shrimp boat is called the Good Luck, and Jimmy Buffett sitting on the bow. He looks exactly like me.
Yeah.
So
no, you guys were certainly.
I've had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, certainly ringers back in the day. I would always tell people that's Jimmy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only difference is he's a billionaire.
Well,
he's a billionaire. I'm sitting here like in $100,000, in the middle of little house in the middle of nowhere.
Well, but different times.
Yeah.
Well,
we're fine.
I can. So, when you were going to Flamingo, just going back to that, I remember trailing to Flamingo when we weren't going to the bay, and we didn't go very far. And I would ask you about, hey, where's that, that tarpon spot, and where do they catch this, and where do you catch that?
Yeah.
And we never went to First National. We never went out there, but we talked about it.
Yeah.
But we would always. You love the tailing redfish. I mean, that was something that I can remember.
Yeah.
we would get in a spot and they would just be tailing everywhere.
Yeah.
And they don't really tail anymore now. You hardly ever see a tailer.
Yeah.
You can find them, but they're swimming. But I mean, we used to get into them, and it wasn't like you had a technical boat. I mean, we had the Hughes Redfisher back then. Who knows how much water it drew, but it got us there.
7 or 8 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah. Randy, there was no pressure, in Flamingo. You might be the only boat out there.
Yeah.
You look around, there's no Islamorada guides. You have the whole place to yourself.
Yeah, a lot of times we did.
And they didn't have the freshwater problems with the outflow out of the Everglades. And so, it was a perfect ecosystem. It was really good in those days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a lot of moving parts now, I think, with water quality, salinity, grass dying.
Exactly.
I mean, there's so many. I don't think you can blame it on one thing, but there's a lot going on. You would probably be pretty disappointed if you went out there now to see what you see.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
But guys still make it work, and there's some guys like Dave Dankard, that fishes out of Lorelei, and he's dialed into them still. Where consistently he catches reds and snook, all sight fishing. All those flats in front of Flamingo.
There's a lot of good guides in Islamorada. A lot of good guides that have figured it out.
Yeah.
They'll run to Sandy Key. They'll pass the 2 capes and they'll go to the East Cape, Middle Cape. These guys really know what they're doing. These guys are smart.
Well, it changes a lot too.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot, but you adapt and you figure it out, and you keep on going, and it's just part of the learning curve. But I remember with the getting back offshore a little bit. I remember the It's Okay.
Yeah.
Coming to Islamorada, and we had
those are my initials.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah.
That's how I came up with that.
Really?
Yeah.
I just thought it was. You would always tell me, "It's okay, Randy.
Right.
It's okay."
Yeah. Don't book any charters.
Yeah. You don't worry about it. I'll let you know when to show up.
Yeah. I'm the business end of the deal.
Yeah. I'm at the rod shop. I'm only a few minutes away. I'll stop what I'm doing if we get booked. And that was the life. I mean, that was how it worked down there. And then you got I guess that ran its course. Oh, you sold it. Didn't Bob Seeger buy it? Carlos was running it. It's Okay.
Yeah.
Because then you got the Ocean Master after that.
That's where the fish really started to come in for me.
Yeah.
Because in my days of charter fishing out of Fort Lauderdale, I learned this, and also the Keys. You'd put the bait up on the kite, the mate would reel it, and when the fish took off, I'd go forward with the boat, and we'd catch the fish, but then the angler would say, "I didn't do anything." The mate set the hook.
Right.
I took a few cranks, the mate gaffed the fish and put it in the boat. What did I just do?
Right.
So my philosophy was, and I learned this from a couple of guides that I knew in Key West, just eliminate the mate.
Right.
All you need is a captain.
Right.
And what we did was, this is my idea, was I called it maximum angler participation.
Yeah, I remember.
in which, and my customers were crazy about this idea. In which I let them set the hook. I let them reel it in. I let them put the fish in the boat, because then they could say, "Hey, I did everything."
Right.
But if they lost the fish, if they blew it, if they made a mistake, at least they made the mistake.
Right.
They appreciated that. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
And it was a big hit. And I did that. That was my philosophy with my 30-foot Ocean Master for about 3 years, and then I retired from fishing forever.
Yeah.
And I went to work for Hal Chittum.
You could do that. You could do that with the little boat. You couldn't do that with the big boat, because you had a fly bridge on it and you needed the mate.
Yeah. Right.
You had already fired me about that.
Yeah, I canned you. I've had enough. Yeah.
And then I think we both ended up with Chittum somehow. I ended up working for him in the store, and you were doing
that didn't last long.
Knife
for
stuff.
You.
No.
I ended up working for Hal for 3 years, and Hal Chittum I'm forever grateful. He's a great guy that when I couldn't fish anymore. No more charters. I was through. And he brought me in and I did his fly fishing store,
Yeah.
And Hal Chittum is the world's greatest man. Yeah. And I worked for him for 3 years.
In the store.
In the store.
Yeah, I remember
Great
that.
guy.
Yeah.
And that's how that turned out.
What year was that you retired?
That 85. God. 85. We opened that store in 85, so it had to be 86.
H.T. Chittum and Company was a monster. He had stores in Naples. He had a store
Miami, Key West, Marathon.
Yeah, Orlando.
Yeah. But the Alamorada store was 85.
That was his first store.
Yeah, that was that you worked there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember you with the knives and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that had
Fly
to be
rods.
That had to be 86 because I was out of there by 86 and I had World Class Outfitters from 86 to 93.
Then I moved back. My daughter was really sick, so I had to move back to Miami to be close to her specialist and her doctor. And I was always afraid of hurricanes,
right?
Because my house for 10 years that I lived in Islamorada was 1 foot above sea level.
Right. Well, so I thought, Lower Matacumbe.
Yeah, lower. Yeah, they
hence the name.
They don't call it Lower Matacumbe for nothing. So I managed to get out of there before a hurricane. I moved to Miami 9 months before Hurricane Andrew hit. Andrew.
Right. You went through that in Miami.
Yeah, Andrew went right over my head.
Yeah.
200-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, missed the Keys. You've been okay there.
Yeah, didn't miss me.
Right.
I was living in South Miami at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, Hal Chittum was a great guy. I'm going to get over to see him this summer or this fall whenever I can, and I wish him the best.
Yeah, I see him every year at the IGFA has a captains and mates inductee thing that they do.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, where they induct these captains and guys with great careers. Billy Knowles got inducted.
Yeah.
Wow. Actually, Alex Adler is going to be inducted this year, October, and Hal will be there.
Hal Chittum and I learned Biscayne Bay together.
Yeah. Well, he was guiding there, so he probably
he was guiding.
Spent a little more time than
him and Frank Garisto.
Yep.
And Bill
Curtis.
Bill Curtis.
Yeah.
There's Bill Curtis, Frank, Hal, and then I started guiding Biscayne Bay trips through the Orvis shop in Fort Lauderdale.
Was that John Donnell's place?
John Donnell.
Yeah.
John Donnell in Fort Lauderdale on Los Olas Boulevard. That was a wonderful Orvis shop, a really nice one.
Yeah.
And John Donnell was booking bonefish trips, Biscayne Bay, and I was guiding those trips.
Wow.
But the thing of it is that me and Hal learned Biscayne Bay. We must have had 1,000 hours, he and I, writing everything down in our diaries, high incoming, low outgoing, this flat, that flat, the other flat, and which tides were best for whatever. And there's probably 50 flats that we fished.
Yeah. And they all had fish.
They all had fish when we wanted them to.
And what was your favorite one?
Man, I got to say Lewis Cut.
Really?
Yeah, that was a great flat.
Because you had bonefish and permit in the same place.
Yeah. And sometimes the bonefish were so big that the tails flapping around, you thought they were permit. Wow. But then you got a little closer and you knew that these were full-grown bonefish.
Yeah.
Feeding on a high incoming tide.
I remember one time we went to Biscayne Bay and you said, we're going in the morning. I go, we never go in the morning. We go in the afternoon. Yeah. We're going in the morning. They're going to be tailing permit in the morning. We're going to Cutter Bank.
Cutter Bank.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget wheeling down there, and it's like just the sun's coming up. It's early, and I'm thinking, man, we're not going to be able to see anything because we can't see. And next thing you know, we get to Cutter Bank, tide's right, and here are these permit tailing, Then when you got done with those, here were the bonefish tailing. And it was like they were all right there. It was like Disney World on that corner of that bank that morning. And they were everywhere. I don't think I ever saw it like that again. But some of those permit were tailing in 3 feet of water.
Randy, I'm going to tell you a story that I've never told anyone about Biscayne Bay. Are you ready?
Oh, boy.
South Biscayne Bay, Midnight Pass.
Yep.
And around the corner in that bite, Hal Chittum and I, this is good. Hal Chittum and I were polling for bonefish. And there's 2 creeks that come into, they're freshwater creeks. And they come into, not Midnight Pass, but God, right around the corner. I wish I was ready for this. And I could tell you.
Arsenicer Keys?
The Arsenicers.
Yeah.
High and coming. And Hal said, there's 2 creeks. And we were in front of the first creek. And Hal said, Ozzie, what's that? And I looked over, and about 200 feet from us, and Hal didn't have the world's greatest eyesight. He still to this day has eye problems.
Right.
Yeah. About 200 feet from me, something walked across the creek, coming in to that shallow bite there. And I looked, and Randy, it was walking away from me, walking across the creek, and it entered into the mangroves on the other side. It was a skunk ape. Randy, I'm telling you, man.
Well, Turkey Point was right there too.
Yeah, Turkey Point was right there.
Yeah.
And it's like the eastern part of the Everglades. And I looked at Hal, and Hal looked at me. And here's what I saw for about 6, 8, 10 seconds was I saw a large human-like shape, and it was reddish with no neck and a head, and it was walking away from me and Hal, walked across the creek into the mangroves on the other side and disappeared.
Wow. Well,
I'm telling you, Randy, they don't call it Bigfoot, they call it skunk ape.
Right.
But he was there.
Well, enough people talked about it.
Yeah.
There had to be somebody that seen something like that to
No.
for there to be a story out there.
And I called Hal on the phone a few months ago. And I brought it up with him.
He remembers?
And he remembers.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll have to
Randy,
ask him that.
You can't make this shit up, man.
No.
I'm telling you.
Well, you and Hal, so there's no telling.
Hal and I didn't drink in those days.
Right?
No, Hal didn't. To this day, Hal doesn't drink.
Yeah, I was going to say,
and in those days,
I
didn't drink either. We were pretty straightforward, fishing guides is what we were, responsible charter boat captains.
Yeah.
And we didn't drink. We didn't.
Well, you wonder if there were other people that might have seen that never said anything, because obviously it was something,
Yeah.
So, Ozzie, here we are. It's 2022. We're a little bit older.
Yeah.
Things have changed a little bit. Obviously, you retired from your charter fishing.
Yeah, you got that right.
And I'm at a point where, I'm looking at my future of, how do you monetize 40 years of knowledge and experience? We don't have a business that we can sell, and retire.
Yeah.
You got to keep doing something.
Yeah.
And it's kind of important to share these stories and for me anyway, to thank you for what you did when I was young. I didn't know where I would be 40 years or which way I was going to go, but you spent the time, you mentored me with things. There was no internet or anything like that. You physically showed me, here's what you do, here's how you do it, this is how it works. And that is getting less and less nowadays. Mentoring in that time that the older guys would spend with younger guys to show them the ropes. And I was very fortunate.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy to be able to share this with you and talk to you about it. And it's my journey.
Yeah.
And this is how I got there.
Yeah.
And it's just great to be able to talk to you about it.
You know, Randy, it seems like old times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you made it for me for like 100 or 200 charters. And you're brave, you know, and you're beyond your years. I remember one time I had some cops from New York City, 4 of these guys, and you were just a kid, and you were driving around in this beat to crap, this rusty old
My Toyota truck?
Your Toyota truck.
Oh man, that was a classic.
I know, man. It was a classic. But these guys got out of hand. They were fighting and everything. These are full-grown men. There's 4 of them. And they had a disagreement, and they started a big fight in my cockpit of my charter boat, the Windy 2.
Yeah.
The teak decks, you know, and everything. And these guys were, they're out of line. They're out of line. So I said, Randy, I said, these guys are out of line. They're fighting. I'm not doing this. This charter is ended. So you were halfway up to the flying bridge. You went back down. I heard this banging around. Bang. Oh, God. Oh, stop. I looked down in the cockpit, and you had 4 New York cops, and you had them tamed. And I pulled into the slip at Bahia Mar, and the police were waiting for them, and they got them off the boat.
Yeah.
If I live to be 100, I'll never forget that, Randy.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, you were a kid, and you were throwing the cops around because they were out of line.
Well, they made us come in early, so I had to do something.
No, I made them come in early.
Yeah,
Randy, that's a true story. You can't make this stuff up.
No, well, coming from you, you know, obviously it was something that was significant back then, and you know, I kind of remember something like that, and it seemed like we had a few of those, you know, over the years, and you know, guys like you spent time with me and showed me things. Yeah. Tommy Green, you know, working for him, and George Copeland. Yeah. You know, at the time, I didn't realize what I was getting out of it or what was happening, but it was the direction in my life.
But Tommy Green and George Copeland didn't take you out on the ocean.
No, they'd take me to the bridges and go snook fishing, which was their thing.
Which, like, my 34-pound snook over here.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
And by the way, that's a George Copeland 34-pound snook. I was fishing with George.
Yeah. Oh, no kidding.
I think so.
Yeah.
If I remember.
I just fished with him a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, we talked about how, to me, being a kid, going to work at a tackle shop for those guys. Yeah. And fast forward 40 years, I'm taking him fishing. Yeah. You know, it's pretty cool. Kind of like you and your bucket list when you wanted your Cubera. Yeah. And I said, okay, you want to catch a Cubera?
I was so old I couldn't turn the crank.
But when we did that, we went to Ocean Reef, we got our lobsters, and we did it. Yeah. We did it kind of early because I think we were home by midnight. And I said, you want to catch another one? And you said, no, man. I only need to catch one. I know. I'm done.
One and done.
Then you've got it hanging up in your house here.
Yeah, in the other bedroom.
Yeah. I mean, just to have that opportunity to say, here, I want to go do this. This is what I want. And be able to put it together after you kind of showing me what it was all about from the beginning. I didn't know, but I figured it out. I put my time in. I understood how to do it.
But you learned, Randy, here's the deal. Here's the bottom line. As we grew up in early Fort Lauderdale, when Fort Lauderdale had a population of like Sebring up here, like 30,000 people. Yeah. And there were crevalles and snook swimming up and down the seawalls. I didn't have anybody like you. My father had a bass rod with some rotten. My father couldn't fish. So here I am in Fort Lauderdale in the late 50s, and the crevalles and the snook, and I couldn't even, you tie a granny knot. Tie a granny, and throw it some kind of a plug out there, and you didn't have a chance because I didn't know how to fish.
Yeah. Well, you learned because of all the opportunities.
But I'm a little kid, on a bicycle.
Yeah.
I
was too.
In early Fort Lauderdale. And you were one generation behind me.
Right.
So I'm thinking to myself, here's the next generation. You kids are learning, you have better tackle than I had. And we're brothers, we're fishing Fort Lauderdale, in the good old days.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and we did it.
The bridges, the piers, all that stuff. We could fish on a seawall and didn't get kicked out. Now, if you fish on a seawall, the cops are there.
Yeah.
And you're going to jail for trespassing. So those days are long gone.
But not then, Randy.
No, that was the beauty of it.
Yeah.
You could get in Harbor Beach, or you could get off of Las Olas, and you could do this stuff and throw your Zara spook and catch a 20-pound jack, and nobody yelled at you. If anything, they came out of the house and asked you, "What are you doing?" Oh, that's really cool, and they were happy for you.
And what can be better than a 20-pound crevalle hitting a Zara spook?
Oh, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, but you got to be able to tie the knots.
Yeah.
And
we learned, the granny knots were, how many knots could you tie to make it hold?
Like 10 grannies.
Oh, at least 10 to 15, depending on the pressure. Yeah. And now you tie a uni knot and you're done. But you live and learn.
Randy,
it's all experience.
We got the same roots, man. Old Fort Lauderdale,
Yeah, well, that's what brought us together, and that's what made us what we are.
Fort Lauderdale to the Keys. And I remember one time I went to a holiday park, to watch you pitch a game, and
against Mike Stanley.
Oh, Mike Stanley, boy, he's a ball player.
Yeah, yeah. I lived vicariously through his career.
Yeah. He was a Gator, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I hate the Gators.
Know, you were the University of Miami guy, but he went to Florida State and signed with the Texas Rangers.
Anyway, I was there when you threw your arm out.
It wasn't that night, but it was. I probably wasn't a good night.
How's it feel so far?
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
As long as I don't throw anything.
Yeah.
That's where it changes.
Yeah.
Well, Ozzie, it was great catching up with you and seeing you and the stuff that you've done. I mean, what a life you've had doing it, and I'm very fortunate to have been able to do what I have done, and I thank you for it.
Yeah. Randy, I'm glad you come around, man.
It's great to see you.
It's good to come around. This is where old charter boat captains, retire in a central part of Florida.
Yeah. Well, it's not too bad either.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Ozzie, thank you, man.
All right, man.
All right, everyone. Till next time.